Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And this is the 1 week of the fall that we don't have any Arizona sports, any major Arizona sports to talk about. I'm talking about football or basketball, right? I mean, that's pretty much what we talk about.
We're 10 seconds into the show and you're already throwing the other sports all the way under the bus.
Women's soccer is doing great. Very happy to see that.
Big win over USC.
We forgot to mention that. Did we mention that when they won top 10 matchup over USC?
They beat USC and then they hung tough with number one UCLA. So good
that's my bad. That's my bad on that.
I'm gonna single out Hope Heisey, their goalkeeper, has been outstanding. So we got to have her on at some point.
But we want to talk football. Unfortunately, we're in the midst of not a great part of football. I mean, just the schedule is brutal. We're going to talk to our friend Yogi Roth, or Shane and I had a chance to sit down with Yogi Roth a little bit earlier to talk about, what he would do to fix Arizona's problems, what he thinks of Arizona this season, because he's calling 3 straight Arizona games, Oregon, Washington, and then USC next week. So it'll be good to get Yogi's opinion. Plus, he's going to talk about a new book or new books that he has coming out. So check that out later in the show. But before we get to buy or sell, I want to talk about something first, Shane. Before we had, after the game on Saturday, there was some Twitter banter going back and forth among people that I know personally, some I don't know, but most of you are listeners to this program. Let me just say this. We all want the same thing. We want Arizona to win games. We know that. Let's go easy on each other. We don't have to agree with everything. I don't agree with everything Shane says, and I can promise you, Shane certainly doesn't agree with everything that comes out of my mouth on this program. But we're respectful. We all want the same outcomes here. I understand we're frustrated that the defense couldn't stop you and I from scoring touchdowns at this point. But let's slow it down. I appreciate some people's optimism. I appreciate the pessimism of some people. When coaches are in a position that they are being paid a lot of money, or whoever you are in a position, if you're making an extraordinarily good sum for a living, you are going to get criticism if your performance is not good, whatever job that is. So I don't mind those people that are going to call for Johnny Nanson's job. It's not, I'm not going to do that on the show, and I'm not sure Shane is either. But I don't think they're an idiot just because they do that. I think we just need to be more respectful. And the other thing that I want to point out, Shane, sorry for my rant again, 2 shows in a row. Expectations change. We all thought Arizona at this point in the season, 3 wins was fine. But we saw what happened with San Diego State. We saw North Dakota State. We got our hopes up. There's nothing wrong with variable expectations either. Just going to say that.
Agreed. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, the reason you're not seeing me is because I had a little minor surgery over one of my eyes. And I got this big old eye patch that I don't really want. None of you really need to see it. So I'm just putting it's an excuse for me to use my headshot from back in my 30s.
Good looking headshot. Yes.
Appreciate that. So that's why you're not seeing me. So with that said, no, I agree with you, Eric, and expectations definitely change. And look, my only criticism has been on the defensive side. And I don't think any of us really expected this defense to be worse than it was last year. I think we expected bigger improvement from the offense because there was more room there and because they added more pieces. And that's what's happened. On the defensive side, they added a couple of key transfers, brought in some good freshmen. Jacob Manu has been solid, and hopefully we'll see more of him. I'm sure we will the last 5 games of the season. But overall, there's been a regression there. And I think I don't, people are going to say what they want online. I don't really care, but I do think it's completely legitimate because some people are saying, stop whining. The program is better. They only won 1 game last year. True. But I think all of us expected the defense to be at least as good as it was under Don Brown and his one and only season in Tucson. And it's been worse by every metric, year over year, game over game. It's been worse. They're last in all Power 5, among all Power 5 teams in yards allowed per play. They're second to last in opponent passer rating. Those things are just unacceptable. And they're frustrating at a time where the offense is humming along. Jaden DeLora, I thought, played his best game against Washington. And the running game overall has been good. The offensive line, it could have been a little better here and there. But I think that's the frustrating part is I think we expected improvement on at least marginal improvement on both sides of the ball, or at the very least for things not to be worse. Things have gotten worse on defense. So I don't think it's wrong to point those things out. I agree with you. People are going to get irrational on social media, like they always do, regardless win or lose. So I don't really care about that. But I guess the only thing I'll say is if you think, well, you shouldn't complain because they won 3 games, they won 1 game last year, doesn't mean there are things to point out. And I don't think we're wrong for doing that at all.
So I want to make sure, Shane, I'm not calling anybody out specifically. I really enjoy interacting with people on my personal Twitter feed. We have Cat Country AZ on Twitter. Now we have an email address where you guys can send us show suggestions, thoughts, comments, whatever you'd like, bash us, say nice things about us. catcountryaz@gmail.com. That is catcountryaz@gmail.com. Anything that you have related to the show, I'm sure we'll do some contests through our email address at some point as well. But if you'd like to get a hold of us, that's an easy way to do it if you choose not to do so on Twitter. Okay. Let's get into buy or sell, Shane. That's presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. You are not on camera, so you cannot show yours. So I'm going to show mine.
Beautiful.
Look at this beautiful half-gallon jug. This was the Rob Gronkowski idea.
Yeah.
And I know if you're watching on screen, my background is kind of
just
weird.
Keep it in front of you. Keep it in front of you.
Look at this beautiful thing. It is huge. It's fairly heavy. It's sturdy. And it's great, especially for me. I go out to the golf course and I need a bunch of water in the summer. This is it. So you can get one of those at iceshaker.com. And to get $5 off your purchase, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C. But this thing is absolutely beautiful. And once again, I will put it in front of me. If you're watching on the YouTube, this is great. Get one of these. Okay, Shane, we're going to keep this very simple this week. Buy or sell. Number 1, Arizona's coaching.
That is a very specific question there, isn't it, Eric?
Yes.
I'll buy them for now. Certainly, we've talked at length about Johnny Nansen and the issues on the defensive side of the ball. And I think it's while it's still too early to say whether he'll be successful, it's certainly not too early to ask questions about whether he will be, because he's never been a DC before. And that's been a concern. I think that, and we asked Yogi Roth about this, and you'll hear this shortly in our next segment about whether Jed Fish would consider making any big changes on the defensive coaching staff if things continue the way they are. I think adding a co-defensive coordinator seems to like it. That might be on the table. Someone on Twitter, I apologize because I'm forgetting who right now, suggested maybe something similar to what ASU has done, what ASU did with Marvin Lewis as a defensive consultant or analyst or whatever his title was, something like that, maybe to help boost things a bit. So, but I'll buy them as a group so far. I want to single out one assistant coach for I think doing a great job, and that's Jordan Powpow, the tight ends coach, who brought in Tanner McLaughlin didn't turn him into a star, but he's been fantastic. Brought in Kean Burnett, who we hope will also become a star in his own right. So I think that the tight end position is relevant again at Arizona. There's been a lot of great coaches, I think, on both sides of the ball. Certainly, I'll definitely buy. A lot of concerns about Johnny Nansen, but we'll take that week by week, and we're going to talk to Yogi about that as well.
Yeah, I'm going to buy here for one reason, and mentioning Jordan Powpow was a great part of it. Shane, is offense. I mean, Arizona's offense is one of the more potent offenses in the nation. Mm-hmm. Mind you, it's because they're having to always play catch up, it seems. But this offense has been fantastic, and I mean what Jed has done, and Brennan Carroll and Jimmy Doherty. I mean, they've done a great job. So got to give them a lot of credit. I'm going to leave out the defensive guys right now. I'm going to hold on those, but definitely buying Arizona's coaching, especially from the offensive standpoint. Okay, number 2, Shane. It's not just personal; it's personnel. Buy or sell.
That's nice. Yeah, I'll definitely buy it. Yeah, you only have so much to work with. I mean, Don Brown, I thought, got almost the most he possibly could have out of that group last year. That ragtag bunch of defensive players. I mean, not all ragtag. They had some talent on there, especially in the secondary. But yeah, there's only so much you can work with. And that's my point, though, is that I think Arizona at least slightly upgraded on the defensive side of the ball. And you're seeing guys, the team overall hasn't done as well in some individual guys, who I expected to be better or at least as good as last year haven't stepped up. Now, sometimes that just happens. Sometimes guys fall off the radar and it's not the coach's fault. But I would say on an individual level and on a team level, I think there are concerns. A guy like Keon Bars, who I thought, was going to have a big season, has sort of disappeared at times. And he's not the only one. So, yeah, personnel has a lot to do with it. But I think that certainly you would expect, this unit, especially as new and young as they are, to at least improve marginally week to week. And it feels like to this point, it's gone in the opposite direction. So obviously it has a lot to do with personnel, but I think the coaching staff, I just put it this way, Eric, I can't imagine Don Brown, if he were still in charge of the defense having the same kinds of struggles that they are right now under Johnny Nansen.
Yes, I would agree with that last point. With that said, I'm also going to buy that it's not just personal, it's personnel. And if you know the it's personal theme that Arizona under Jed Fish has given, that's why I use that.
Do we need to create some it's personnel shirts for
yes,
with the Wildcat Country logo on them?
We really should, Shane. That'd be great.
I wear
that thing all over the place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I mean, we know the defense has been terrible. We're not going to sit here and dwell on it. I don't think the scheme is great. I mean, something with the scheme isn't working. Here's the thing that bothers me. I was just doing something for my other job, and I saw that Cal against Colorado, and that was a shocking upset last week. Cal had like 40 yards rushing against Colorado.
By the way, Eric, I am bitter at you for talking me out of not picking Cal or not picking Colorado.
Colorado. Yes, I know. I know. I'm sorry. That was, I
would have beaten you in our picks last week if you hadn't done that. It's all your fault. It's pure pressure.
Well, we didn't think they'd win the game outright, but the fact is Cal had like 35 yards combined rushing against one of the worst defenses in the country. Whatever Colorado did defensively, why is Arizona not paying attention? Like, that's how you flip a defense. Now, Arizona didn't get torched by the run this week. It's because Michael Penix Jr. threw for 516 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. The fact that Arizona's pass defense is really bad, that their run defense is really bad, something has to be done during this bye week. Now, with that said, the bye week came at a perfect time. We're going to see if changes are made before an elite team in USC comes to town. All right. Speaking of USC, Shane, number 3, the attendance for the homecoming game against USC over 45,000. Buy or sell?
I'll buy it. I think there's still enough excitement around the program. I think that a lot of people are coming out to these games because the offense is exciting, and I think some people certainly expected a win over Oregon, or at least a close game. And maybe those people were misguided. But I think that if you can sell out, get 51, 52,000, whatever the capacity is for Oregon, you should be able to get 45 for the USC game, especially because when's the last time Arizona's had this exciting an offense? It's been a long time.
Well, you're also missing one other thing, Shane. When is the next time that USC is ever going to play at Arizona Stadium?
True.
I mean, this may be in our lifetimes. This may be the last time that USC makes a venture to Arizona Stadium. Are the Wildcats really going to schedule them in non-conference anytime soon? Probably not.
No.
I mean, and does USC, who can schedule anyone they want? I mean, I guess they'd probably schedule Arizona. It's fairly close. Maybe the Wildcats will try once they go to the Big Ten. But it's crazy to think that we're not going to ever see this again. I think this will be my 10th USC game at Arizona Stadium, something like that, and quite possibly the final one. And it's kind of depressing. So, yeah, I hope that place is sold out. I'm taking the over. I'm buying that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be sold out, but I think 45 when you consider, yes, it is USC.
And homecoming.
And the offense is as exciting as it is. Again, I think Jaden Delora would have gotten national attention if Arizona had won that game, which they should have had a chance to, by the way, because there was that bogus holding penalty in the fourth quarter. But regardless,
yes,
I think I will buy that there will be at least 45,000 there.
Okay. My bonus question, I'm going to insert it in the middle this time. I'm going to say, Shane, that this 2022 home schedule of USC, Oregon, nationally, top 10 teams, USC, Oregon, ASU at home, and a ranked SEC team will be the best home schedule that we'll ever see at Arizona again.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now on Wildcat Country, listen, if nothing else, we make you guys think. This is one that will make you think. Shane, buy or sell, this is as good as it's going to get for Arizona fans as far as an exciting home schedule all time.
Ever.
I'll
sell that. I mean, there's got to be something.
Explain to me how.
Eric,
you're losing USC.
I know, but if you're thinking 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, there's got to be something that's going to come up that's more exciting, whether they join the Big 12 or other teams join the Pac-12. The landscape changes all the time. I think that's just, if you ask me like it's the most exciting for the next 5 or 10 years, I might buy it, but ever? Nah, I got to sell that. Something better is going to come down the line.
All right. I'm going to actually buy this one, Shane. And I'm going to tell you why. USC is one of the more marketable entities in college football. USC puts people in the seats regardless of how good USC is and regardless of how good Arizona is. You're losing them. Now, Oregon's still cool, and ASU is still great, and you're going to get ASU every even year. So that's fine. So you can just throw out all the odd years. You're never going to have a better schedule when you don't have ASU on the home slate. I mean, I guess it's, you think back to like 2003 when Arizona faced USC with Pete Carroll, Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lendale White, those guys, and LSU with Nick Saban. They were co-national champions that year. I mean, the Wildcats were terrible. It was the last year of Makovic, and he was fired midseason. But like, that was great. This is also a great home schedule. I just can't see, unless you get in the SEC, which I just don't see as ever possible. I know our buddy Corey Leff really wants that to happen. I can't see that happening. I think this year very well could be the best home schedule that we ever see in our lifetimes for Arizona football. Now, with that said, I'm sure the athletic department, if anyone is listening, is not going to be real happy with me saying that. But there's no one in the Big 12, now that Texas and Oklahoma are gone, that is going to draw the amount of attention that USC and Oregon will, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, but Oregon's not going anywhere for now.
Okay, fine. So you can have Oregon ASU. You would need to have another marquee. Like if you have Alabama, and then you would have to add another team that's really, really good. I mean, I guess when Alabama's scheduled, if that series holds on in like the early 2030s, okay, I mean, maybe that's interesting if Alabama's still Alabama. But like, I just don't see it ever getting as good as this.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll put this in a time capsule. We'll revisit in 10 years and see how right you've been to this point.
Yes.
How's that?
Wildcat Country 2032.
2032.
I think that's when we play Alabama too at home. Okay. Non-football here, Shane. Number 4, the Arizona men's basketball ranking of number 17 in the AP poll is simply too high.
I say it's a little too high. Yeah, I'll buy it. I said last year, I thought Arizona was a borderline tournament team, so I might not know what I'm talking about, but you just think about everything they've lost. 3 of their top 4 players inarguably 3 of their top 4 players, and Justin Kier, who was a key guy off the bench, came up big when Kirk Kriisa got hurt in the Pac-12 tournament, and just a senior leader. Losing all those guys, they brought in some interesting talent, some transfers, some guys overseas, but they're just all unknown quantities. And will all those guys add up to everything that Ben Matherin and Dalen Terry and Christian Coloco and Justin Kier did for this team? I'm hard pressed to believe that's going to happen, at least this season. So, I mean, obviously they're not ranked number 2 or number 3 like they were last year. They're ranked 17. So it's reasonable. I would probably put them just outside of the top 25 until I actually see what this unit can do. Look, and let's just to back up completely about this, Eric, these are all just, fun conversations because these rankings don't mean anything. But as far as where they're ranked, I think it's a little high. It's not outrageous by any means, but I would probably put them a bit lower, probably just outside the top 25.
Originally, when I wrote this question or thought of this question when the AP poll was released a number of days ago, I thought, oh, that's too high. Then I read that Kylan Boswell may be ready earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a guy who is going to be one of the top point guards in the 2023 class. He's ready to play. Arizona's biggest weakness was point guard. I actually don't think it's too high. I think it actually might be a little low, a couple spots too low. I'm surprised to say that. Yeah.
I bet most fans would agree with you. I bet most fans would agree.
Well, right. Because of course they would, because Arizona's top 10. Arizona's not a top 10 team. We don't know what they are, but I can't imagine that there are 16 better teams right now on paper than Arizona. Yeah. I haven't analyzed, I'm not in college basketball mode yet, so I'm not sure, but I'm going to say it's a little too low. So, okay. The other one, Shane, conversely, the Arizona women's basketball ranking of number 19 is much too low.
I'll buy that it's too low. I would say this team, if everything goes right, is top 10. With everything they brought in, they do lose Sam Thomas, and I think they're going to miss her leadership more than anything else. But bringing back Kate Reese and Shayna Pellington, some top freshmen, some top transfers, Jade LaVille from ASU, among others. This team was borderline top 25 last year. I know they were ranked most of the year. I think that they kind of fell off toward the end. I think they're, in terms of talent, they're probably borderline top 25. If that was the case last year, they're better than 19 this year. I think that if I had to rank them, and like you said, I don't know the ins and outs of every women's basketball team, but I can't imagine there are 18 teams, at least by midseason, they're going to be better than the Arizona women's basketball team. Yeah,
I'm going to buy the heck out of this one. I'm going to go a little bit more. Now, once again, you and I Don't really know much about women's basketball at this juncture. We don't know what the other teams look like in the country. I'm going to say I can't imagine that there are 12 teams that are better than Arizona on paper right now. I just with Kate Reese being a sixth-year senior, Pellington, Maya Nagy, Jay Lev. I can't imagine that there are that many better teams than Arizona. I think they are much too low. I think they should be closer to the top 10 than they should be to the top 25.
I think with this roster, Eric, if they finish below a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament and don't finish at least third in the Pac-12, I think they could be second. I think that's a disappointing season at this point.
I think at this point, Shane, the goal should be let's host a regional on our home court again, like last year, and let's win both and not lose in the second round. The Sweet 16 or bust, at least for this team. As far as
is it the third year in a row we've been Sweet 16 or bust for?
Well, I mean, the fact is they made it all the way to the championship game 2 years ago, and they hosted. They were one shot away from winning a national championship, which was amazing. Incredible.
Still amazing. Yeah,
it's still amazing. It's amazing to actually think that happened. It's also crazy to say, and this will be my last basketball thought. Arizona women's basketball was in the Final Four in 2020. Men's basketball has not been to a Final Four since 2001. Yeah. Isn't that wild to think about?
What's funny? I was out, took my son to the park on Saturday, and there's me and a bunch of other dads. It was like a dad convention out there. And nice. We're talking college hoops, and the guy just moved from Michigan. He's a Michigan State fan. So we're talking about, NCAA tournament. And I mentioned that a lot of people would be surprised that Arizona hasn't made the Final Four since 2001. He did like a double take. Like, really? It's been that long? Because I think that Arizona's brand is still very strong in terms of men's basketball because they have had a lot of success. But I think if you asked most fans, they'd be really surprised that it's been 21 years and counting since they've made it to a Final Four, because their name recognition, their brand is still very strong. But, and they've won a lot of conference titles and conference tournaments and done a lot of other things, sent a lot of players to the NBA, which is very important. But, goal 1 and 1A, which is winning a national championship and getting to the Final Four, they haven't done it in over 2 decades, and that needs to change. Hopefully, I don't know it's going to be this season, but hopefully sometime soon.
One of my buddies, one of my good friends, scheduled his wedding on April 1st, Saturday, April 1st, which is Final Four Saturday this year in 2023. And I'm like, and I'm in the wedding, great, and I'm looking forward to it, going to be fun. Not really thinking that Arizona is going to be there this year, but in 2024, when it's in Glendale, nobody I know schedule a wedding on that day, because I will tell you, Arizona's going to be there, and so am I.
Well, maybe it's a reverse jinx, Eric. Maybe this wedding's a reverse jinx. It's like the opposite of you looking for hotels in Pasadena after Kevin Sumlin got hired.
And with that note, let's talk to somebody that's based in California, Yogi Roth, who Shane and I had a chance to speak with a little bit earlier to get some great thoughts on everything that's going on in the Pac-12 and how to fix Arizona here on Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact: when I trained with Glenn Gronkowski, everybody, when we were trained together, people thought I was the other Gronk brother. So it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
Shane, very glad to welcome back our friend Yogi Roth, who is in the midst of doing 3 U of A games in 3 weeks, as he'll be calling next week's USC Arizona game on homecoming from Arizona Stadium. Yogi, great to have you on as always. My first question: if you were Jed Fish, what's the first thing you would do to fix this defense?
It's a good question. I think the first thing you got to do is you got to love up the players you got. I think everybody out there wants to say, yeah, we'll just get better players. Like, we're just recruiting, hitting the road. Like, no kidding. Like, we all know that. But I think you just look at the recruiting class that's coming in, right? It's 80% defensive players, I think, something like that right now. I'm sure they'll be active in the portal. But to answer your question about the game coming up, and the season that's still left and the things they are still playing for. I mean, this team still is competing to be bowl eligible, in my opinion, at least. You got to love up your guys. You have to instill confidence in them. And I know Jed feels the same way. I go back to the time that I had with Pete Carroll. He's had his time with Pete, and in my game notes, I kind of have like a line or two about every coach that is something that he's learned from each guy, whether it's Bill Belichick, and that's like the organization, the grit, whether it's Sean McVay and like being an over communicator, right? Jim Harbaugh, and I think his quote is, "Nobody got a who's got it better than us? Nobody," right? Like just great gratitude. He's got something that he's taken from everybody that he's put into his repertoire as a head coach, and I think from Pete, he was always tapping into players so they maximize their potential. And if you go back and even look at the SC's rosters, we would talk about this often, is when guys would get to the NFL, they would often not achieve the success that was projected upon them. And I believe that it's because the environment curated one where guys just played like out of their minds. They played up to the very top of their ceiling. And I think that's what you got to do now. They got to come back, and we all know what the points are. We all have seen the plays. Defense, same deal. Like you got to come and you got to love them hard, coach them hard, love them hard. And that's probably the first thing that I'd imagine he did after they went through the tape.
Yogi, again, like Eric said, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate it. I don't think any of us expected Arizona's defense to be all world this year, but I think we expected maybe a small step forward, even with Don Brown's departure. And instead, in a lot of categories, they definitely have regressed, not just year to year, but even game to game. You know Jedd Fisch well, and I think you probably agreed that he's probably a pretty impatient guy. And I can't imagine he'd let Johnny Nansen go after 1 year, but could you see a scenario where maybe he brings in a defensive specialist like ASU did with Marvin Lewis, or a co-defensive coordinator if the defense continues on this path for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it's hard to like get into that game right now. Like we saw with Cal, obviously they just brought in Steve Greatwood in real time. But not, I don't really go there yet. I think for this team, like they're so connected to week by week, and Jedd's job is to have the vision for the future, as we've talked about many times. But I think we all look at it and you're like, okay, it's not like it's loaded with NFL players, but it's guys that play hard. I don't see loafs. I see Jacob Manu flying around as fast as he can. Or I saw Jalen Harris like take on a block against UW differently than he did against Oregon. Like I've seen incremental growth. So now I don't know. I think it's premature to go there. And I think it's like knee jerky to go there to a degree. Like they were saying the same thing at Stanford a week ago, and they just played an incredible game and shut down Notre Dame. I
understand. I just want to interject real quick because they're last in the Power 5 conference in so many categories, in yards allowed per play and in quarterback passer rating. They're the second worst in Power 5. So I don't want to knee jerk either. It's 7 games, but it's just, you feel like if this continues this way, Jedd's going to have to add something on defense, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've been around Johnny Nansen for a long time. Like, it's not like he hasn't been trained really well, like whether it's Clancy Pendergast or Justin Wilcox. Like he's been on a bunch of staffs with guys that know what they're doing. He's game planned a ton. Like I think there's a lot that goes into that. I'd love to see this defense next year. When they go heavy defensive in recruiting and they go heavy defense in the portals, is just my projection, right? I think we all probably understand that. Jedd said something to that degree, I think, in his press conference earlier this week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, man. Like I think every coach will do whatever they need to do, right? I think you said like I forget the line that you said about Jedd, but I don't think he's the guy that's gonna like pull the ripcord really fast. I think he's gonna evaluate it and be really thoughtful around that, because he's been on the other side, right, where offenses like maybe they're not playing great, maybe they're playing a backup quarterback. Like you got to find ways, and I think that'll be the enjoyable part of the back half of this season. And their schedule doesn't do many favors.
No,
and we all know what the next couple games are and the teams you got to play, and like the league is loaded this year. Right? I look at their schedule, and SC, Utah, UCLA, 3 of the 4 best teams in this league, and Oregon's in that conversation where they just had, and UW to me and Oregon State are the next tier right below. So I don't know, man. Like I don't think I'm not ready to like make a statement either way on that right now.
All right. That's fair enough. Let's talk about happier things, especially in particular, the offense for Arizona. And I personally thought that Jaden DeLora had his best game of the season against Washington, and it was obviously overshadowed by the loss, but I feel like his decision-making is improving each week. The communication between him and the rest of the offense, the playmakers. What are your overall thoughts on him and just how he's progressed in 7 games this season in an Arizona uniform?
I don't want to be knee jerky, right? As I just said that earlier, but I think it's probably his best game of the season, right? I mean, you look what he was walking into against Washington, that stadium, the history he's had at that stadium. We all know about the flag planting. We showed it in the open of the broadcast. And there were breakdowns on the offensive front. I mean, those wide edge rushers were getting after him.
Yeah.
Climbing the pocket, finding holes in the pocket, other than one snap where like he ran, he was across the line of scrimmage and threw it. I thought he had a great feel for the entire game. He made some incredible throws under so much duress. I think they got a special guy in that regard. And what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. 7 games in this offense. I know that he played a lot in the previous 2 years, but 7 games in this offense where he's got to turn his back to a defense. And now it looks really normal, right? Like I talked to him before the Oregon game and he said in week 2, it was, I think I really know what's going on. And then before the Ducks game, he was like, no, I really have a handle on it. And I thought he handled the bounce back opportunity after, a game where he didn't play his best in Oregon this past weekend in Washington. And mechanically he was sound, right? He climbed the pocket. He was just, I like to say, just be boring sometimes a quarterback, climb the pocket, one hitch, get the ball out. Like he was doing all those things on time. And then when he had to be dynamic off platform, he made it look like old hat. So yeah, I'm so impressed. And if they could keep this group together, but if Jacob Cowing comes back, we know what this offense is. We'll see what their left tackle does in Morgan. Like, what does he decide to do? Who knows? We know they're gonna be better on defense. Like, I think we have enough body.
They can't be worse, right? They can't be much worse. Yeah,
that's fair. But I think they'll make a big jump next year. Like, this will be fun. This will be really fun to watch. And Jayden de Laura will have a chance to make real money. Like, I really believe that when you look at what he has, how he's added what he had 15, 20 pounds this past off season. I was curious, like, can he hold it? And can he still have the twitchiness to him that we saw at Washington State? He's done that and more. So I'm buying Arizona. If you said like, hey, what team are you looking forward to in 23? They're the team that I can't wait to see what they put out on the field as a collective.
Would you say that as a whole, Arizona has overachieved your expectations going into the season or underachieved based on not necessarily their record, but what you've seen from them on the field combined?
That's a tough question for me. It's easy to say they've overachieved because of the wins they have, and I don't think that should be lost.
Fair.
I really don't. Like, look at what they've done and where they were. We can't forget how much of a struggle it was for this team. I thought that they had a chance to win Mississippi State game. Halftime of the Cal game, I had a game that I think I had SC Oregon State, and I turned it off at halftime, and I was like, wow, Arizona's rolling. Like, I would have liked them to see. I would like to see them get one of those 2 games. So to me, there's an underachieving side. Like, if I'm going to be honest, of like, hey, I've been around this team a ton. Obviously I know the guys there. I thought they were good enough to get one of those 2. So it's a toss up. Like, you look at the reality of their wins and how bad they were a year ago, offensively it was so many quarterbacks. The defense was super like hit or miss, like bring everybody, risk everything, get there or don't. I think this year, like, we're seeing clearly a dramatically improved offense, and the defense, as we highlighted, has been struggling. So I don't know, a little bit of an underachiever to me, because I thought they could have got one of those 2, but they beat Mississippi State. We're looking at one of the best teams in America right now. So
right. Yeah.
Who knows?
All right. So the big question is, Arizona, to get to bowl eligibility, has to win 3 more games. As you mentioned earlier, is about as tough a slate as you can probably get coming up these next 3. USC at home after the bye, you at Utah, at UCLA. Which one, in your opinion, is the most gettable of those 3?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. Hold on. Let me grab my trusty schedule here.
Yeah.
I have like a composite schedule. So to me, it's all about like who plays who.
Well, USC's coming off a bye as well, as you know. So they're off this week. Arizona's off this week. I mean, I think UCLA is going to go into a tailspin at some point, probably starting this week.
You keep thinking that, and it keeps not happening.
I don't think so.
Wrong. Yeah. You don't think so? Okay.
I think you're wrong on that. I think, the problem is like, where those games are at. Like if Utah was coming to Tucson, I'd say, yeah, like I could see them moving the ball. Like Arizona's going to move the ball.
And that was a close game last year when they played
Yeah,
Utah in Tucson.
Yeah, all these games had their moments last year, right? Even
Yeah.
the UCLA game had its moments. I don't know. I thought coming into the Oregon game, I was like, I could see, because the amount of points that I thought Arizona could score, I was like, they're going to upset Oregon or SC. I could see that happening. After what we've seen the last 2 weeks defensively and the way that USC runs the ball, like they get no play for how well they run the ball. Like Travis Dye is impressive. This offensive line, like they weren't perfect against Utah, but they are able to move the line of scrimmage. Like, I don't know. Like I'm calling that game, so I hate predicting games that I'm going to call. Like I'd love to see that one go to the fourth quarter and Arizona have a chance, just for the sake of Ted and I up in the booth. That'd be fun. And I do think that Arizona can keep score. And I think that's going to be their thing this year. They're going to have to do that. They're going to have to find a way, though, to me, to figure out. And it's hard, right? If you be Johnny Nansen, you're like, okay, if we play straight up, it's hard. Teams can run the ball on us. So we have to change things up. We've got to change the picture. Okay, you're going to play too deep at times. Teams have run the ball on our defensive front. Okay, sky guy in the box. Well, let's just assume Jordan Addison's healthy. It sounded like today, like it's not a long-term thing. Mario Williams is as explosive as anybody other than Jordan Addison. I think he's clearly the number one receiver in this league. And I put Cowing 2 and Mario Williams probably 3 and Dorian Singer 4. Like, and maybe even, some of the UW guys right in the mix there. Roma Dunze, McMillan, like we got some talented wideouts in this league.
Don't forget about T-Mac on Arizona as well.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. I mean, he's a freshman All-American. Like he's, the league's got ability is the kind of the point at wideout.
Yeah. It's
just hard to pick your poison. So I'd probably say Utah among the 3. And I'm, it's hard pressed for me to say that because they have moved the ball. Like they've scored over 40 points last week in the USC win that they had. And they have got elite secondary. Like, I don't know. I probably go to the team that has the least explosive offense to say like, hey, can Arizona just match score and then maybe get a turnover? Like that's where they haven't been opportune. They haven't created those turnovers. I loved how they, try to create one with the onside kicks to start the second half against Washington. We'll see. I don't know. Their backs are against the wall in all 3 of those games. I'm calling the first of the 3, maybe more. I hope SC is a great one. But I don't think that they'll get run out of the building in any of the 3. Like I don't anticipate Oregon. I really don't, man. Like I think they can match score with a lot of teams. And I think where we sit today, that is their strategy. Like they have to score. And I think that there's probably a lot of confidence taken from the bounce back against UW. And we'll see how they do against the USC team. That we'll see how healthy they are once they come into that game. If Eric Gentry goes, he's a game wrecker at linebacker. There's some other players leave with injury. So we'll see how that thing shakes out.
All right, Yogi, I know your time is short, so I got one more question for you. Just in case we don't talk to you between now and the ASU game, it looks like, Arizona's lost 5 in a row to the Sun Devils, gotten their butts kicked the last 2 years. It looks like it's a bit of a more even matchup, at least this year, although Sean Aguano maybe has put a spark in that program. Just as of today, and I know we're like light years away in football terms, but do you see that being a more competitive game in Tucson this year than it has been the last several?
1,000%. I wish it wasn't Friday because I'd probably be calling it, but it's already, I think FS1 or somebody already has it. Yeah, I'm excited to watch Arizona State. I have them this weekend against Stanford, coming off of a big win at home against UW, as you guys know. Stanford coming off a big win against Notre Dame. Looks like Emory Jones is going to come back and play. I want to see this run game. I want to see this offensive line. Like, how do they manage some injuries and some movement that they've had recently? Defensively, and they got some players that look the part. Excuse me. I think their defensive front came into the year with as good a depth as anybody, right? And they lost, whether it was Lole to transferring, Michael Matus to season-ending injury. They've had some other injuries along the way. BJ Green's going to miss the first half this weekend from a targeting penalty against UW late in that one. I don't know. I want to get an eval in person, but Arizona 1,000% can go win that game. And that's going to be a fun game for a million reasons we know. And we'll see if ASU can string off a couple wins. Like there's a world where they could put together a 3-game win streak. Stanford and Colorado, sure, next 2. Then they get UCLA, Washington State, Oregon State. Like I think they have enough talent to be a threat in all of those games, right? They don't have any of the big horses per se, other than UCLA the rest of the way. So their schedule's a little bit more forgiving right now than Jed Fish and the Wildcats schedule. But yeah, Arizona's got every chance to win. I think if I had to net out today, I'd probably lean towards Arizona just based on how explosive they've been offensively. But so much is going to happen. Injuries, health, scheme, like confidence. I go back. I really think, guys, that, and I'm happy to keep talking. I think the thing really for Arizona now is going to be how connected this defense feels.
Yeah.
Right. I've been on teams where like one side of the ball is playing much better. And all of a sudden, like you can have a split. And if there's one thing we've seen from Jed, and we joke about it, but like the Jed Lasso term, like he's been able to keep this team connected. Look at what he did last year. Other than 2 games, they're in every game, 8 games within a score or less to start the fourth quarter. We love showing that graphic. This year, look what happened in the UW game. And there was a world where I looked at my partner Ted in that broadcast in the first quarter, and I'm saying, "Ooh, okay, get ready. This might be one of those broadcasts." And they come on back and have a chance. So to me, this bye week comes at a perfect time, guys, to get away, reset. I think players have extremely shorter memories than they did even when I was playing because so much is going on. But then for Jed and Johnny and the staff to reinstill a ton of confidence, and then it's on them in terms of play calls to put him in the best position to play with confidence. And you got to get lucky. You know, when you call one of those, boundary pressures with the corner, like you got to get home, right? You got to finish on the quarterback. You got to knock a ball down. Like Trayton Stukes, what a bounce back game for him. Like he got beat a bunch in that game. Then he makes a great play late in the ball game. Like that to me is going to be the thing. And that's what I'll be talking to the coaching staff next week. And on Friday, when I get to campus, when we meet with Jed, of like, tell me about the confidence of this defense. Because I think that defense specifically, and I learned this from a former coordinator at Arizona, Paul Rhodes, I really believe that defense is about effort and connectivity. And can you play on that string, right? We all are kind of moving. And then you got to make some plays. And then you got to play with the right technique. Those are the things that I'll be looking forward to when USC comes to town, because they are awesome to watch, dude. Like there's 193 snaps in the Utah game I just watched back. Every game I watch back, and I pull clips to save for when I'm broadcasting. So I don't have to watch the game again. I just watch my own cut down version. It's usually around like 40 to 60 snaps. I pulled 103 snaps from USC Utah where I was like, damn, this, you know what, is sweet. And it's going to be a huge challenge for Jed. And I hope the crowd shows up, as you referenced, it's homecoming. We'll be there hopefully for back-to-back sellouts and give them a chance in a 4:00 start.
Yogi, you break it down like nobody we have on here. So we really appreciate it. I have 2 quick questions for you. First of all, if you were to make a pick for who's going to be in the Pac-12 championship game now, give me the 2 teams.
Oh, damn. Why you got to do that to me, bro? I
always throw you on the spot. Come on.
Knew it was coming.
Okay. All right. Well, we look at the standings, right? And just a reminder to your listeners, I'm sure you hit it all the time. It's best winning percentage in the league, top
Correct.
2 winning percentages. So no more North and South. I kind of go to like who doesn't play who and who plays who where. Oregon has the toughest slate, but they get everybody at home, right? This week they get UCLA, they get UW in a couple weeks, and then they get Utah in week 11.
Yep.
And then they got to go play their rival in Oregon State. Like I think their path is the toughest. As of today, I think they're playing the best football. So it's hard for me right now. Like I'm immediately conflicted to see what happens with them and who that loss, if they have one, who is it to? I look at UCLA and their path. They got a nice little path when you look at their schedule, right? We all know with SC, they get them at home. And then you look at SC, I think they got the easiest of paths. After Arizona, they don't leave the state of California. And the Notre Dame game doesn't matter. It does for the CFP implications. Like it matters. Like trust us. Living in LA and coaching in SC, like the Notre Dame game matters. But regarding your question, it has no bearing. So it's hard for me to not pick SC just based on the path. Right. But that would mean they'd have to beat UCLA, which I don't know if they'll be able to. Like, I think UCLA, I picked them to go to Vegas in the preseason against Utah. I'll pick them again. I guess I'll stick with that. I wouldn't be shocked if Utah did based on, what they have to do and the way they played. But I guess today, I think the 2 best teams are playing this weekend in the league in terms of consistency. What UCLA's been offensively consistent, granted, we haven't seen it on the road yet, but I think they're mature enough to handle it. I think Oregon's the best team in the league, especially the last couple of weeks. Now, granted, they played Arizona and Arizona struggled on defense. We'll see. But I'd be hard pressed to not say, hey, rematch of those 2. But damn, man, I don't know. I think It's 2 of 4 teams. I could say that. I feel confident it's 2 of the 4 teams that are the top 15. And I think that's really strong. And as a league, we need to keep saying it. 4 teams in the top 15. We've got 2 legitimate Heisman candidates playing each other this weekend. Caleb Williams might be the best player in the league. Cam Rising played heroic. Dalton Kincaid, 16 targets, 16 grabs. Like, we're playing good freaking football. And I often, you know my role. Like, I love representing this league. And often I'm representing it on an island to a degree outside of people within our league and my colleagues. Now, like, I talked to Desmond Howard earlier today, and we're talking how legit both UCLA and Oregon is. Right? We'll talk to people throughout the country that are now paying attention because it's real. 9 conference games is real. These teams are real. The NFL players are real. The portal has elevated the league. And we need to stick our chest out in that regard and speak that way. Because when I watch Tennessee and Alabama, and now I'm on a rant, and Georgia and Clemson and all those teams, Michigan, I don't look at one of them and say, that's a world beater. I don't look at one of them and say, that's Alabama 2020, which was the best team I'd seen in a while, or LSU the previous year, best team we'd seen in a while.
Ohio
or
State this year?
I don't know who they played though. Like I think it's, look, they
haven't beaten the ranked team yet this year. So
and they won't play one until I think Michigan, if memory.
Penn State next week.
Okay.
If they're still, Penn State should be ranked.
Yeah, so we'll see. But like, you get the point. And I think that's why it's important to talk that way, because I'm over the bullshit of like giving teams passes and giving leagues passes. If you've earned the pass, Georgia earned a pass last year. Yeah. Like, they earned it, right? Like, I don't see a team heading into week 8, and I apologize to the youngsters listening that I said a curse word there, but I don't see a team yet that I'm like, pass. It might be Ohio State. I hope it is. I love CJ Stroud. Ryan Day, he's in my book, 5-star QB, huge fan of them. But I don't think it's fair to be like, Georgia, best team in America, mark it down after week 1. Oregon had 29 missed tackles for 376 yards after contact. Like, I didn't see a great game against Kent State or Missouri. Like, we'll see. And I think we need to talk that way as we gear up into the playoff rankings in 2 weeks.
Well, you got me all excited now for the rest of the Pac-12 season, regardless of Arizona. My last question for you. You always have your hand in some project outside of calling games or providing analysis. What do you have going on these days?
2 things.
Okay. We've got
these. 5-star QB. When I was in Tucson for the Oregon game, I was on Ryan Russillo's podcast, and it launched this book back to #1 on Amazon.
Oh, congrats.
It's cool. And it's right next to Nick Saban's book. So it's fun. And like the argument with the SEC, we're getting a small little win. And then last week I released my first ever children's book. I wrote this in the pandemic. It's called Finding Free Fun. I wrote it with our 7-year-old son. He kind of helped approve the process. And it was cool because he was learning how to read. And I don't know if you get your young kids or young kids listening or parents of young kids, like when your kid went through the pandemic, like our oldest one did, like everybody tried their best, but it wasn't what it traditionally is. So reading has been a challenge. So I was like, we got to compete to make reading enjoyable. So we created this book, and he's a character in it. It's based on this boy who's on this search for free fun. And free fun is a phrase in our house we use all the time. It's really important to us around like this world where you got to buy everything or play everything, like on a video game or in front of a screen. And we surf once a week. We go for a hike, like whatever it is. And I think this book is a cool example of A, that thought, but B, I hope it helps individuals learn how to read that are struggling. And like, I could get choked up when I hear my son read now, because I know the path he's been on. And again, I go back to confidence with Jed in Arizona. Like, it's on my wife and I to instill confidence in his teacher, like around this. And it's something that 2 years ago, bro, I wouldn't even have thought about, like, instilling confidence to read or whatever. Like, but now, like, I'm on it. And I'm really proud that, I got to share that experience with him, putting this book together. And check it out on Amazon. It's animated. It'll come out next month as an animated book on the platform Books. You'll be able to see it on airplanes. You'll be able to see it in a bunch of different places. So super proud of really both of those things that have released this season.
Well, congratulations on that, Yogi. I know I'm sure Shane will be purchasing that for his young son. So that's nice. Pretty awesome. And thank you as always for joining us. Great insight, great analysis. And I'm sure we will talk to you again soon. And once again, that is Finding Free Fun. And you can get that on Amazon ASAP.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate you asking that, guys. Appreciate the time. I'll see you homecoming.
See you at homecoming. Yeah, thanks for
Finding the
stopping.
stands.
I saw you on the way up a couple of weeks ago, so it's cool to get a chance to meet you for a second, and I'm sure I'll see you walking all the way up there, in a couple of weeks.
Let's go, baby. Get the cardio in.
So great to have Yogi on. It's funny, Shane, that Yogi said to us beforehand, "Hey, I got 15 minutes, guys. We're gonna, let's try to keep it to that." And he got so passionate when talking about everything. He wanted to keep going. That interview was a lot lengthier than we thought it would be. So Yogi, we always appreciate your time and thank you for being so gracious.
Yeah, and Yogi, he says nice. He likes to say nice things about everyone. He works for Pac-12 Networks, so I appreciate that. But I think we get some honest answers from him, especially because he's kind of does a lot of soul searching before he answers questions, and I appreciate that. But I know he's known Johnny Nansen for a long time. He's known Jed Fish, so he's not going to say anything negative about either of them. But good insight and interesting to hear him struggle about, like when you asked him about who's going to the championship, the Pac-12 championship game, because it really is kind of USC has the best record in the conference, but are they really the best team in the conference? I have my doubts.
So we'll find out next week. I'm really excited. One question that I almost threw in by yourself, Shane. Does Arizona have? Could you see it being a one-score game in the fourth quarter by yourself?
For the USC game?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's all.
We'll revisit next week, but yeah, I could see that.
All right. I'm going to ask you that question probably again next week.
Sure.
Will it be a one-score game in the fourth quarter? I was just thinking that I could see it. And by the way, USC has played 2 road games this year. Oregon State, they only won by 3. In Utah, they lost by 1. Mm-hmm. I mean, if Arizona's ever going to pull an upset, a sizable one, it's probably a good time.
Yeah, it probably didn't do it. It didn't do Arizona any favors, though, that they lost a heartbreaker to Utah, and then they have a bye week, so they have 2 weeks to focus their anger on the Wildcats. But we'll revisit that next week.
Yes, we will. All right, time for game picks. We're going to do an abbreviated slate this week. There's no Arizona on the schedule, but I'm sure all of you tune in to these picks every week, just like you look at my sportsline.com column for college picks. Check that out, sportsline.com. I give my college picks, including a lot of these games are mentioned in there. So we'll hit that. I am 5 games over 500 on the year against the spread. You are 9 games under. So that means I have a 7-game lead. But as we know, that can change within 1 week's time. You have kicked my butt the last couple of years. So we'll see if the second half of the season treats you better. Okay, Shane. Battle of ranked teams, undefeated. Syracuse at Clemson. Clemson is giving 13.5. Who you got?
Oh boy, it's at Clemson. That's a tough one. If it was like 6 or 7 points, I'd go with Clemson easily. I think they'll probably still find a way to cover. Maybe they're up 7 late and they get a pick 6 or something to end the game. At home, I got to take them by 2 scores, even though I think Syracuse is legit.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Clemson as well. I didn't think they were going to be that great this year, but their offense is light years improved over last season. I'm going to take them. I think they win by 17 or so over Syracuse. Dino Babers has done a great job. The bubble pops this week. Ole Miss is undefeated and in the top 10, going to Brian Kelly's LSU team, who's favored by 1.5. This line is very bizarre to me, Shane. I've been wrong on bizarre lines all year. Not this one. I'm taking LSU. I mean, Ole Miss is a better team, but this line is just too weird for me.
So you think that the Vegas knows something we don't?
Vegas knows something that we don't. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You're giving me the opening to try to gain some ground on you. Yep. So I'll go with Ole Miss. I was leaning toward them anyway, but yeah, I think as much as I don't like taking road teams, especially in SEC, I'll go with Ole Miss.
Spoiler alert: if you don't want to look at my sportsline.com column, shame on you. But one of my favorite picks of the week is this next game. Texas is -6 at Oklahoma State. Now I know that Oklahoma State's quarterback Spencer Sanders is banged up, but they still are, number 13? They're ranked ahead of Texas, and they're getting points at home, and Sanders is probably going to play. I'll take Oklahoma State not only to cover, but win the game outright. So seems easy. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's a coin flip, and OK State really blew it against TCU this past week. But with that kind of line, I got to take OK State.
Okay, here's one. I'm going to go first again with this one, Shane, because I got a couple of stats that may influence you here. So Mississippi State, who we saw beat Arizona earlier in the year, is going to Alabama. Alabama off that incredible. I mean, last Saturday was one of the great college football days in the history of our time. Utah, USC was great. TCU, Oklahoma State was great. And Tennessee, Alabama was beyond epic. Alabama is now favored by 3 touchdowns over Mississippi State. Now, before you pick this game, let me give you 2 stats. First of all, Mississippi State has scored a combined 16 points against Alabama in the last 4 years. So much for the Mike Leach effect. Secondly, for those of you bettors, the over-under is 61 in this game because everybody watched the Alabama defense last week. The last time a Mississippi State game in Alabama reached that high of a total was 1993. So with that in mind, I think Alabama is going to win and shut Mississippi State down to the point where the 21 points will be nothing. I'm rolling with Alabama minus 21. How about you?
I'm reluctantly going to take Mississippi State just because not just the Tennessee game, but the Texas game. Alabama really could easily have 2 losses right now. And so they're playing at home. Maybe they take out a bunch of frustration on Mississippi State, but Mississippi State's better than I expected they were going to be. They really shouldn't have lost that game to LSU. That was really their only awful game of the year. So I'm going to take Mississippi State to cover.
Okay. Well, we'll disagree. So we've got a few that we disagree on thus far. Okay.
I have a few.
Kansas State at TCU. Both teams are ranked. TCU undefeated. The Sonny Dykes effect. TCU's giving 3.5 at home. Who you got?
I'll go with TCU. Got to go with their guy, Sonny Dykes. I don't think TCU is like a legit college football playoff contender, but maybe a New Year's 6 contender. I'll go with TCU.
I'm not buying into Kansas State yet. I'm going with TCU as well. I like them to win this game by about a touchdown. All right, Shane, Oregon State is 3-0 against the spread at home. We know they're a really good home team. Colorado coming off that shocking win last week. Oregon State is giving 24. I'm taking the Beavers. How about you?
Me too. I think Colorado gave it all they had for that win over Cal. I think they're still gonna be in celebration mode. I think Oregon State finally started looking like the way that I expected them to look. I can't pick them right. When I finally picked against them, they take care of business against Washington State, but I'm going to take them to cover.
All right, sneaky game here. This one I'm putting as one of my best bets as well. Washington, who we know what they did against Arizona, that 49-39 win, is a 7.5-point favorite at Cal in a battle of teams that have beaten Arizona from the north. Okay, Shane, I'll let you start with this one. Who you got?
I'll take Washington. I don't think either team is as good as we maybe thought. And after Cal losing to Colorado, I know they're going to be PO'd, but I think Washington finds a way to cover.
Shane, Washington's defense is so bad. Like
they are.
It's not Arizona bad.
No.
Their defense is bad. Cal just didn't have offense last week. That's why they lost to Colorado. Their defense gave up 13 points in regulation. Not their fault. Cal's going to cover this line. I don't know if they're going to win the game outright, but I love Cal here at 7.5. Absolutely love it. ASU is off a bye week, and they're taking on Stanford, who shockingly, coming off that choke job against Oregon State, came back and beat Notre Dame last week, which nobody would have predicted. I'm taking Stanford as a 3-point home favorite. I mean, this game, I don't really have a gut feel on it. What do you think?
I'm going to go with ASU. I think that their confidence is sky high after that win over Washington. I think Sean Aguano's kind of rallied these guys. And look, they're not as bad as the team that lost to Eastern Michigan. I think they're finally righted the ship a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the quarterback situation. I know Aguano said that Emory Jones is still the guy as long as he's healthy. We'll see how long that lasts, but I'm going to take ASU on the road.
Okay, finally, the big game of the week, Shane. UCLA is traveling to Oregon. UCLA undefeated, number 9. Oregon, number 10. Oregon is giving 6 points in this matchup. I'm going to take Oregon here. I'm still not, as you heard me with Yogi, I am not buying into the UCLA train. I know it's the Chip Kelly revenge. I just don't think UCLA is as good as everybody thinks they are. I'm taking Oregon to win this game by double digits.
Yeah, I'm staying stubborn on UCLA. Look, if UCLA finds a way to win this game, maybe I'll come around, but I think Oregon wins and they win pretty handily.
And I'm just waiting for this UCLA meltdown time to come, and it's just hasn't come yet. So we'll get there. Hopefully by the time Arizona plays there on November 12th. Shane, we want to thank Yogi Roth for joining us. Always great to talk to him. Fun show. I know we don't have any sports. We don't have any Arizona games to predict this week, but a lot of good things on the horizon. 5 more football games to go, plus a couple of basketball seasons that we're really looking forward to. So for Shane Dale, I am Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.